My story was not going to be the first impression of having the last name Kenel growing up, but Neil was pretty common, actually. So, hi, my name's Justin. Thank you all for being here. I would like to tell you the first impression that I had of what a date with my wife, now wife, could be like. And you'll understand why I'm talking about it as a first impression after I go through the whole story. So, her name is Katie, a woman I love very much. But when we went on our first impression of a date, we were not dating at the time, and she likes to remind me of this when I call it our first date. And I think that's fair. We did spend 8 hours together in her apartment. This is a PG story, I swear. What had happened was I really liked this woman. And, I wanted to hang out with her. And I wanted to hang out with her in an environment that she didn't feel threatened. So I was like, hey, let's go on a hike. And because I didn't want her to feel threatened, I invited some other friends. So I invited my friend Vanessa. And I heard later that my now wife Katie was like, oh, Vanessa. He must be trying to get with Vanessa. Now, obviously, we all know that's not the case. But, first impressions. So what happened instead was I got sick. I had a cold, and we could not go on the hike. And Vanessa couldn't make it anyway, so that's why I'm married to Katie now. I let Katie know that we weren't going to be able to go on the hike, and she said, oh, well, I just happened to make some chicken soup. Would you like to come over and have some chicken soup, and maybe we can just hang out like pals, friends? And I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. What do you want to do? And she was like, oh, we'll just hang out. So I went over and I brought a board game. I used to have over 100 board games. I have since donated them because I married my wife and we moved into a house, and I had to make sure that we had space for things other than my board games. But I brought over a board game, and we're sitting at the small little table in her apartment, and we're eating soup and we're playing a game, just two pals hanging out together in an apartment. And we're hanging out, and some time goes by, we lose the game because it was a cooperative game. And so it's like, okay, well, that was fun. And she was like, you can, by all means, stay here and hang out, two pals. So what do you want to do? Now, one thing that I will say about my wife is that, like me, she is a huge nerd. And one of the things that we had bonded about was the 1984 David Lynch Dune film. If you are aware of it, you know that, for instance, Sting, the magnificent singer of the Police, he has quite an outfit in this movie. So, of course, we will send images back and forth of Sting at a codpiece. But we watched that movie. And so the second aspect of the first impression of my date with my future wife was watching the 1984 David Lynch Dune film. And again, if you have not seen it, it is very different from the Dune film that just came out. I would recommend watching it if you haven't. It's a blast. So we watched the 1984 Dune film. We bonded over that. We made a lot of fun of it because it's a very funny movie, not intentionally. And then so we were done with the Dune film, and now we had spent, 4 hours together, just two pals hanging out. And then we went to, it was around dinner time, so it was like, okay, well, let's get dinner. Let's go get drinks. So we went, the two of us, two pals getting drinks. Just kind of and at this point, I think she probably started realizing it was the first impression of a date, because, it's two people who like each other, not necessarily making eye contact, both kind of looking at their Guinnesses. We were at Ireland's Four Courts, which was right down the road from her apartment. And my first impression of a date was, man, really glad that Vanessa had to cancel. Really glad I got a little bit sick and we couldn't go on that hike because, we had been friends for a while, but we were sitting there enjoying our Guinnesses and enjoying our food, and I was starting to move past the first impression of the date in my head. And I was like, this could really be something. Got to make sure this night keeps going. So we go back to her apartment, and we watch the Grand Budapest Hotel, which is a slightly different energy than David Lynch's do. And again, another fantastic film that I would recommend everyone see. So, two pals hanging out, getting late. And I'm going to leave again, PG-13. PG, I go home that night. But as I'm leaving, I say to the woman who would become my wife, I really like you. I think we should hang out. And my first impression of a kiss with the woman who would become my wife is that she pecks me on the cheek and then runs away. And then kind of goes around the corner in her apartment and peeks out and goes, I like you too. The week after that, we had a much less PG date. So, thank you.